any age, gets to the point where their life is completely devoid of Islam. We know it's not an overnight process, and what we will do today is review and discuss the steps that take place in a person's life to contribute to such a scenario where their life is now devoid of Islam. They're completely off the path, and the only thing that makes them recognizable as a Muslim might just be their name or the way that they look. Much of what we're going to discuss today is based on a lecture which was given by Nouman Ali Khan. It was actually a khutbah, I think, in one of his local mosques. And he analyzes 3 key verses within a surah called Surat Al Hadid, which translates to iron. Now, this is a surah in the Quran, and I remember listening to this lecture as part of my own journey when I was looking back at returning back to Islam. And if I'm honest with you, it scared me. It scared me massively, because whilst he was talking and whilst this lecture was going on, as I listened, every little thing that he described exactly my own situation, my own scenario. And then what was more overwhelming and even more scary was actually, it wasn't him describing what was going on in my life. It was the words of God. It was the words of Allah. And it was a really powerful message. And the most amazing thing was the fact that in just few short spaces, a few short ayats, a few short sentences, Allah had managed to encapsulate and pinpoint exactly how things are going wrong for us and how things can lead us astray. And at the time, I remember thinking, and I remember speaking to Dan about this and thinking, I was completely amazed, like, wow, how can this be? How can someone sum me up and sum up my life in the space of a few short words? And then I realized, of course it can. If there is one being that can, it is the one that created us. It is Allah. So look, we're going to go straight in. We're going to get real heavy. There's not going to be any, pussyfooting around the topics. We're going to go straight in. And we're going to, apologies if that's...
beating around the bush.
Beating around the bush, that's what I was looking for.
You can't talk that language on here. I'll switch you off.
All right. So, in essence, that's what we're going to be doing. So we're going to go straight in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly read to you a few verses from the English translation of the Quran, from verse 12 to 15. And I want you to pay attention, and I want you to understand what's going on, and we will, inshallah, explore these few ayats in much more detail and make them relevant to the topic of today, which is how someone falls off the path of Islam and how we can hopefully eventually get them back to return. So verse 12 begins with, "On the day when you, O Muhammad, will see the believers, men and women, their light shining out before them, and on their right hands it will be said to them, glad news for you this day, gardens underneath which rivers flow, in which you are immortal. That is the supreme triumph. On the day when the hypocritical men and the hypocritical women will say to those who believe, look on us that we may borrow from your light. It will be said to them, go back and seek for your own light. Then there will separate them a wall in which is a gate. The inner side of it contains mercy, while the outer side of it is towards doom. They will then call to them, saying, were we not with you? They will say, yes, verily. But you tempted one another, and hesitated, and doubted, and vain desires deceived you till the ordinance of Allah came to pass. And the deceiver deceived you concerning Allah. So this day, no ransom can be taken from you, nor from those who disbelieved. Your home is the fire. That is your patron, and an unhappy journey's end." Wow. So, I mean, without even having any tafsir or any knowledge of the Quran, that's a pretty heavy scenario that we're talking about here. So let's go into that. Let's delve into what do these verses tell us? What's going on here? And how does it relate to the topic that we've got today? Because I know some of you will have tuned in thinking, returning back to Islam, how do you fall off the path? What's it about? Is he just going to tell us about how he was really bad and now he started praying? It's not going to be like that. We're going to go knee deep, straight to the heart and the crux of the matter. And what better way to do than to look at the verses of our Lord to understand exactly why we go wrong and where we go wrong. So a little bit about this scene. This scene is obviously set not in this world. It's set after we have perished, at some point within the day of judgment. So before we go on to explaining this scene and where it takes place, you need to understand the context of the Day of Judgment, because contrary to what a lot of people believe, there's a lot of subtle nuances in Islam which help us understand exactly what the Day of Judgment will look like. So whilst it's called a day, the first thing is, in reality, we know that it's not going to be just one day. It's not going to be 24 hours. It is going to be an event. It's going to be much longer. Now, the saying goes that the more difficult it is for you, i.e. the worse off you are on the Day of Judgment, the longer it's going to be. Up to 70,000 years for some people. Whereas for others who have done good and done well and who will have an easy passage at this point, it will seem much shorter. There will also be a number of stages within the hereafter which we will need to negotiate through. So you will have the books, the scale, there will be the Prophet's intercession, there will be the arch. And this scene takes place, I think, somewhere just before getting to the arch, where the believers are put through a test. Now, on the Day of Judgment, our currency, our fuel, will be in the form of light. So you will have heard within those verses that I talked about, the two groups of people talking about light and saying we need to borrow some. So light will be the deeds that we have earned on this earth. And when I talk about deeds, it's about the things that we have been tasked to do by our Lord. The farz, the compulsory, obligatory acts. So you're talking about your prayers, your charity, your belief in Allah. Some people will have stockpiled a lot of light, and they will have light which will beam ahead for miles and miles and miles ahead. And for them, their journey to navigate through this day towards their final destination, which we're hoping will be heaven, will be easy. They will be able to see far and clearly. For those who have not done so many good deeds, their light will be intermittent. It may only reach a few yards ahead. And for those that have done very little deeds or have been heedless in their application of doing good on this earth, their light will be flickering, or even worse, none at all. So this brings us to this scenario here. And what I want you to do is I want you to imagine you are involved in this scenario. We've got two groups of people. One group has light, one group does not have light. I want you to imagine that you are with the group that doesn't have any light. And inshallah, it will be a sobering thought, and hopefully it will get you to reflect and think about where your life is at this point, and how, inshallah, over the course of this series, over this talk and the next three that come after this, that you can begin to implement some changes if you need to. Okay. So in this scenario, we have two groups of people, and now you are with the one group that does not have any light. The interesting thing is here, naturally, you will wake up, you will be looking around you, you will see you have no light, you will see that you're devoid of vision, everything is dark, you're scratching around the surface, not seeing whether you can put one foot in front of the other. You feel others with you, but you can't see each other. You know you're surrounded with companions, but they're of no use because they don't have any light. What you do see is a group ahead of you who has lots of light, beaming light, and they're making haste towards their destination. And then what you realize is, hold up, I know some of these people. I know some of these people who are up ahead of me. Yeah, hold on, isn't that so-and-so who I went to school with? Isn't that XYZ who was with me at madrasa, who used to pray with me at the mosque? Hold on, isn't that the guy that I did umrah with, that I fasted with? So these aren't going to be, remember, this is two groups of Muslim believers, people who will have led their lives under the umbrella of Islam and in accordance to what they would have thought was the way Islam should have been lived. So you will find that as a person that has no light, you will call upon those that are ahead of you with no light, and you will ask, hey, come back, we need some light out here, give me some help. And ordinarily what you would think is, yeah, fine, you know, on this earth, if I had some light and Dan was behind me, or I could see a relative of mine, you'd go back, wouldn't you, Dan? I mean,
Exactly.
You instinctively, you'd think that. However, ladies and gentlemen, this is no ordinary day. This is not on this earth. This is on the Day of Judgment, where a father and a mother will reject their own child and say, get away from me. Because on this day, you are stressed. Even a baby goes grey. That's what we've heard. That we are told that on this day, you will be more stressed out than anything else, than anyone else, and you will not look at any family ties. Everyone will be in it for themselves, because this day, this event, Judgment Day, is the occasion when it's decided where your eternal destiny will be. Will it be heaven or will it be hell? And at that point, you are not looking to share any of your light. You are not looking to share any of your deeds. And you are particularly wary of those that don't have any, because you don't want them to steal it from you. Worse still, you don't want to take on their lack of light. So at this point, we've got two groups. You're in that group that has no light. You call ahead and you say to those, give us some light. And they say, no, go back. Go back and get some more of your own light. Go back, meaning go back to this earth. Go back to this life and get your light. But we know, alas, and we'll get onto it, it's too late. So at this point, Allah places a barrier, a wall between the two groups. And now, he explains to us that on one side of the wall is mercy. So those that have light, they're actually now relieved, because it means the group that didn't have any light is further behind them, and there's an impregnable barrier between them. They can't get to them. So the group that has the light is relieved, whereas the group that has no light, for them is doom. And now they realize that's it, they're completely cut off. There is no way forward, there is no way back. And this is where this amazing dialogue happens in verse 14. And in verse 14, what happens is the believers, the ones with the light, tell that group that's behind them exactly why they have no light. And they explain to them exactly where they went wrong and how they faltered and the steps it took for them to go from being people who should have been those that had light, that should have been in the destination of Jannah, of heaven, to those that are now cut off. So here's what they say to him. The first thing is they say, step one, you tempted each other. So this is verse 14 of the Quran. Okay, so these are the words verbatim. It says, you tempted each other. Now this is step one. So we're going to talk about how these verses now relate to exactly what's going on here to a person that loses their faith. You tempted each other. Now the word tempt, what does that imply? It implies bad company, each other. It implies that there's more than one. It's not just a sole singular person who's committed sin, who's involved in sin. It's more than one. Now the thing about bad company is there's a number of problems. There's three problems with bad company. Number one is, firstly, we're influenced by those around us and we become like them. Number two is we become desensitized to the sin that we first committed that used to be really bad, but we become comfortable with it. And the third one is it leads us to greater sins. It tempts us to do one thing, and then before we know it, we're doing other things. So the first example that I'll give here is a very famous hadith that the Prophet ﷺ gave us regarding bad company, and it was about spending your time with either a perfume seller or spending your time with an ironmonger. And what he said is, the parable was, the one that spends his time with a perfume seller, he may be able to buy some musk, or at the very least he'll be smelling of it. Whereas the one that hangs around with the ironmonger, he'll either get burnt, but at the very least he'll go home smelling of smoke. Now the point here is, you cannot shake off the influences of your company. The people that you hang about with, they will eventually have an influence on you. So if it's with good, you will be obviously influenced in a good way. If it is bad, then there is no way you can get away from becoming slightly bad or becoming desensitized to the sin. Now, the example I'll give here very quickly before passing on to Dan is that of smoking cigarettes, okay? So, and I'm not saying this is one of the sins that we need to be worried about. We know it's a grey area, but generally speaking, when you first try a cigarette, the first example I'm going to give here is when you first try a cigarette, you know it's bad. You know it's wrong. You cough because firstly your body rejects it because it doesn't want it. It wants oxygen. But you're taking in nicotine, you're taking in car, and you cough and you reject it. And the other thing is you feel bad because usually when do people try and smoke? I mean, I remember trying a cigarette when I was at school, and it usually is at that age, 13, 14, 15. And at that time, you know that smoking is bad because not only is it illegal, your parents are telling you not to do it, your teachers are telling you not to do it. So the initial reaction after that first cigarette is, damn, I shouldn't be doing this. But what happens? You do it again, you do it again, you tempt each other, you tempt each other. And where are you? You're at the point where you actually crave the thing that made you cough. That nicotine rush, that nicotine high is the thing that you want the most. So here we see a quick example of something that started off bad. You tempted each other, you tempted one another with just a quick fag because you wanted to seem cool. But 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, where are you? You're addicted to that thing. You need that thing. So it shows you step one is that tempting of people. And Dan, I think you wanted to talk a little bit about how.
Yeah, so in the Quran, we have a lot of parables. There's always parables that we use to compare things for us to have intellect. And one thing that my father actually told me, which is quite good, was in this example, you can have the example of a frog. A frog, you put a frog in boiling water, so the boiling water is that thing, that big temptation. Instantly, the frog will jump out of the water, because it's hot. The heat is like, no, that's obviously a bad area to be in. But if you put that frog in cold water and then you slowly boil that water, the frog is unaware completely of what is going on. And that frog just gets cooked alive. So it's not aware at all. So this is the same as us being in the world. You could be there, living your life. Initially, something that you think is really bad, and you're like, nope, that's haram, I'm staying away from it. But if you slowly immerse yourself in those things, then eventually you become desensitized by it and you don't know what is going on. And a great example of this for the youth of our community today is clubbing. That's a big one, night clubbing. With night clubbing, I remember being in university and you think to yourself at first, you think clubbing, nope, not me, not going there. It's just something I don't want to do. But that one time where you have, and people may be around and they think, oh yeah, we'll go clubbing just one night. I mean, there's nothing bad about it. I'm only going to see my friends. The friends that I've made in university, they're not going to do anything bad to me. I'm still a Muslim. I'm not doing anything haram. So, I'll go clubbing. I go clubbing. You go there. The music's good. You're nodding your head. You think, it's not bad. Not bad at all. You finish the night and you're like, okay, there you go. That wasn't terrible at all. I enjoyed myself. I was happy with my friends and I didn't commit any haram. Next week they say, hey, Dan, coming out again? Like, yeah, why not? I didn't do anything. So you go out and then eventually you're there, you're out and you're thinking, wow, okay, this is quite good. These guys seem to be having a much better night than I'm having. I wonder why that is. What are they doing? Oh, yeah, that's the alcohol. Okay, right. What is this alcohol? Can I try some? No, it's not good. You shouldn't really do it. But just one sip. I'll try it. You try the alcohol. You get hooked. You think you've had a brilliant night now. You're like, wow, this is, my night has gone from okay to epic. So you finish that night. Next week you're going to go there again, and you're like, yep. Okay, wow, what's that? The guy's over there, literally nodding his head and dancing to music like he's just in his own little world. I want to be like that. What is he doing? Oh, he's doing some drugs. Okay, wow. What drugs is he doing? I don't know. There's ecstasy, there's cocaine, all these different things. Here, I've got a little bit for you. Why don't you try it? Hey, I've done a bit of alcohol. That's not that bad. I can control myself.
You've broken the barrier by that point as well.
Exactly.
Yeah,
definitely. So I'll do that, and then that can lead on to other things. So you lead on to the cocaine. You start doing that. You start enjoying yourself. Then there's women. And you think, well, will that woman like me more if I do drugs? Because she seems to be hanging around with that guy who does drugs, and she's good looking. So I'll see what it is. You start doing that. Eventually, you may take a woman home. You fornicate. And that's it. You're fully immersed. You are then in the haram and you've been enjoying it. But you can be desensitized by it.
Absolutely. And I think when we talked about this, me and Dan, we gave this example specifically because it encapsulates everything that's mentioned in the first bit of this ayat is you tempted each other. It starts off with one night out, one drink, one sniff of that line, one puff of that spliff. Okay? One night with that girl, it starts off there, and then you tempt each other to other things, and it becomes normal. So this is the problem with bad company, and this is what we will talk about in later shows in terms of how we can replace that. So let's get back to the verses in the Quran. So step one was you tempted each other, and we talked about how that manifests itself in this daily in life today. The second word is you hesitated. Okay. What does this mean? It means you kept procrastinating. You knew it was bad, but you put off changing. So with the example that Dan's given there, you're at university, you're having a great time, you're going out clubbing, you're drinking every night, well, not every night, whenever, student nights, you're drinking, you've now advanced onto sniffing cocaine and taking pills as well. And in your heart of hearts, it's wrong. You're away from home, you're away from your family. And what you're thinking is, I need to change, but not right now. Because I'm having such a good time. Look at all these new friends I've made. I've made so many new friends because they see this cool new me. You know, they see me out in this club, they see me out here, they see me out with these women, they see me splashing the cash, bottles of champers, living the high life. You know what, let me just do this for 2 more years. Yeah, because let me do this for the next 2 years, because once I'm finished university, that's it. You know, when I finish uni, that's it. I'm going home, I'm moving back home, and that's it. I'm gonna be straight on the path. I'm gonna be reading Fajr, I'm gonna pray 5 times a day, I'm gonna read Quran every day. You know what, I'm gonna enroll onto a Hifz class. But guess what? That comes and that goes. That comes and that goes. And what do you then move on to? You say, you know what? Wait, I'm gonna do Ramadan. That's it. Ramadan's down the corner. As soon as Ramadan comes, that's it. My hat's coming on. You know that mosque hat that I wear during Ramadan. It's coming on. That white little number. That's coming on. I'm gonna wear the shalwar kameez. I'm getting the jubbah. That's it. Ramadan comes. Ramadan goes. And guess what? You're thirsty again. You're back in the club. And the cycle repeats itself. You keep procrastinating. You keep messing about. You keep thinking, you know what, I've got a bit more time. I've got a bit more time. But we don't have much time. And guess what? We don't have much more time because we're about to go to an advert break. So we'll see you back shortly in 4 minutes. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back, and thank you for joining us on the first episode of Returning Back to Islam. This week is entitled Falling Off the Path. So we're now halfway through the first episode of our series, our 4-part series that will be airing every Tuesday at 7 p.m. on Radio Ramadan Wolves. Now, we just quickly, it's 87.9 FM, Ramadan Radio Wolverhampton. I've just got corrected there, not Radio Ramadan Wolves. Apologies for that. So, where did we get up to? So we talked a little about the verses in Surat Al Hadid within the Quran, which where a scene has been painted of believers asking other believers, where did we go wrong? And a group of believers who have got light turning back to those that don't have any and explaining to them step by step where they went wrong and what happened. So the first thing that we talked about and we went into some detail was you tempted each other. And the point that we made there was about bad company and how bad company can influence the choices you make and where you get up to in the things that you achieve in life, whether it's good or whether it's bad. And then we moved on to the fact that you hesitated, and I just wanted to finish this off. So we talked about someone who is now starting to sin. They're immersed in sin, they're doing it on a regular basis, but they still know it's wrong. At this point, they still know it's wrong, and they know that what they're doing is not something that's acceptable in the fold of Islam, and they've got the sincere intention to one day return back. And what they're saying is, yeah, we will return back, but we just don't know when. So they keep hesitating, and they're putting off different milestones. So at first it's, I'll do it at the end of this semester. I'll do it at the end of this year. You know what? I'll do it at Ramadan. Ramadan comes and goes. They're still doing the same things. You know what? My parents go to Umrah every year. They go every 5 years. They're going to go to Hajj this year. I'm going to go to Hajj, and then watch, man. That's it. I'm going to be the best Muslim you've ever seen. I'm going to be super Muslim. But does that ever happen? It doesn't. And at that point, that's when someone is so far gone that they start to doubt. And the thing with doubt is, because now they're realizing that actually, you know what? Not before they start doubting. What they start doing now is they start feeling guilty. Okay, so the one that cannot turn back, they're fully immersed in this lifestyle now. They start feel guilty and they start feeling down and depressed. And this is when our old friend Shaitan, the devil, Satan, he comes into play, and he comes up to you and he says, hey man, what's up? You feeling guilty? What are you feeling guilty for? You know, what are you doing? It's only this Islam thing that's making you feel bad. You know, you're going out, you're having a cool time, you've got a nice car, you're out there, you're pulling some nice girls, you're going out meeting some nice friends, having a good time. Yeah? What are you feeling bad for? What's there to feel bad about? And the Shaitan will say, listen, it's just this little thing here, this little Islam thing that's making you feel bad. Otherwise, you know what? I just want you to be happy. I just want you to have fun. You know what I mean? I just want you to just have a sick time. You don't have to worry about this thing. This Islam thing is the only thing that's holding you back, bro. Like, look at your friends. Look at them lads. They don't care. They're all about living for today. And at that point, that's when the Shaitan has planted a seed of doubt in your mind. And now you're thinking, well, you know what? Yeah, he's right, man. It's only Islam that's making me feel this way. You're like, you know what? How true is it anyway? how true is that word of God? How true is that Quran? Like, I don't know, is it really all that? I mean, is it something that we can guarantee is the word of God? And the problem here is the fact that these people are questioning Islam and the logic of Islam has got nothing to do with philosophical or educational logic. It's not something that they've researched and they're saying, well, actually, you know what, there's contradictions here or there's contradictions here, because we know that there aren't any. This is purely a way of deflecting their guilt. It's a way to make them feel better. It's a way for them to create an emotional barrier, which gives them logic and reason to carry on the way that they want to carry on, because they're feeling like they're too far gone and they're feeling like they don't want to give up this life of haram, this life of excess, this life of indulgence. And it just makes them feel better. And this leads on to step number 3. And the words used here in step 3 in that ayat that we're going back to in Surat Al Hadid, verse 14, is you doubted. So you fell into doubt. And the thing that doubt does is doubt lets you off the hook. Once you doubt, and once you doubt the validity of Islam, there's 2 things that are now missing from your life. 2 key things that now dictate how you are going to live your life. The first one is the desire to attain Jannah, the desire to want to go to paradise, the desire to please Allah has gone. You are no longer striving for this destination. And the second thing goes hand in hand. The desire to stay away and the fear of hell, the fear of Jahannam is gone. You no longer fear the punishment of Allah. You no longer fear that wrath. Because now you don't believe in an afterlife. It's fallacy to you. It's all hocus pocus. It's no longer a credible destination. And once you've taken out the afterlife, once you think that after you die, nothing else will happen and nothing will occur, you only live for this life, for this dunya. And the only thing that appeases you is materialistic things in this life. How else can you get contentment? It's all about money. It's about leisure. It's about pleasure. It's about being a slave to your own desires. So once a person is there at that point where the desire to attain Jannah is gone, this mindset is what leads youth and any other Muslim to that point where they lose complete faith. Dan, I think you wanted to talk a little bit about how this mantra, this saying, is prevalent in the youth today.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the key point you mentioned there is the attainment of Jannah. And once that's gone, then your whole mindset completely changes. And obviously the youth of today, or anyone, to be honest, today, it's quite difficult in the Western world especially. I mean, this is what we can relate to. Growing up, and even recently now, you've got this word YOLO. Yeah, you only live once. Yeah, and it's everywhere. So when you think of this, initially you don't think of it as anything. Yeah? You see these people on social media, you see these rap stars and all the the models, and you think to yourself, yeah, I want a piece of that. Yeah, they're living it up. They're doing everything that they can for the dunya. I want that. Yeah, you only live once. Well, what's the problem? You have these people. Yeah, they are exhibiting everything that you feel is success in the dunya, and us being surrounded by that environment and being a product of that environment and not being able to get away from it, you think to yourself that is success. And with that, you think to yourself, I do only live once. Yeah, and in that time of living once, I'm going to do everything that I can do. I'm going to have the best dunya.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to be the dunya's number one. And with that, I'm going to play football when I want. I'm going to get the latest iPhone. I'm going to have all the flashy cars. Anything that I want in this life, I'm going to have it. Because you know what? I only live once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is what leads us on to the next part, which says step 4. It doesn't say step 4, but this is step 4 of our understanding of this ayah, verse 14 in Surat Al Hadid. Vain desires deceived you. And this correlates directly to that scenario we've talked about, which Dan's talked about in terms of YOLO, where there's no accountability or no consequences of your actions other than those that are in this life. So all you try and attain is the pleasures of this life, above and beyond anything else. So the desire to attain the pleasure of Allah, the desire to fulfill and carry out the tasks that He's given us to be successful in the hereafter, that's gone. All you chase is the pleasures of this life, and you commit all your time and effort seeking it. Or you might indulge now in drugs and partying, similar example that we used before, because now the only fulfillment that you're going to get is from this hedonistic desire, because that's the only time you feel good. You aren't content. You're always searching for fulfillment. But we know that true fulfillment comes from seeking and earning the pleasure of Allah. So instead, what do? You wrap yourselves and you immerse yourselves into a life which is completely dictated by being successful in this dunya. Now, let me make a quick point here. We're not saying that you can't be successful in this life and successful in the hereafter. You can have materialistic gain, and we'll talk a little bit about this later. But what the issue here is, when vain desires deceive you, this is when it becomes the only thing you chase. When materialistic or your own desires, your own fulfillments become the only thing that you will work towards. When you only work towards indulging in your own self-enjoyment. So you only care about work because you want to stack up as much money as possible. You only care about getting the new latest gadgets because that's the only thing that gives you happiness. You only care about getting the latest flashy cars, watches. You only care about going out and spending nights out with women and, you know, committing acts which you shouldn't be doing, because that's the only thing that gives you pleasure nowadays. And you are now a slave to your desire. And we know that these things only bring you temporal comfort. And then the final thing we go on here is, it's a scary word. It's a scary sentence. And it's something, when me and Dan were preparing for this show and preparing for this series, we sort of laughed mockingly. But imagine being told this. You think it's simple. You think it's simple to overcome. You think it's foolish that someone would ever say this to you. But what does it say? It says, this is how the deceiver deceived you. Now, imagine this. For me, the reason why this was starking was, well, who's the deceiver? The deceiver is the devil, the shaitan, the world, everything that was designed to deceive you. Why is it called the deceiver? Because it deceives you. And what did you let the deceiver do? You let it deceive you. You had one job. You had one job. Your job was, don't get deceived. Don't get pulled in. Don't get sucked in. Don't think that the materialistic life of this world is the only thing that is there. Don't think that the pleasure of this dunya is the only thing that you need to chase. But guess what you did? You did exactly that. You did it. That's the only thing that you chased. You only chased the party. You only chased the girls. You only chased the flashy new things. You didn't make any time for the thing that you were sent down to make. You didn't make time for salah. You didn't make time for your Lord. You didn't make time to heed to the actions that he wanted you to do, to the rules and regulations that he told you. Listen, follow these rules, follow these instructions, you will be successful. What did you do? You let the deceiver deceive you. Now picture this scene. Again, I'll take you back to those verses in Surat Al Hadid. I want you to imagine you are there in the plains of the Day of Judgment, and this is being said to you. Imagine that. It's a gift, the fact that it's being said to us now. Because if it's said to you then boy, you're a goner. It's done then. Do you know what I mean? And we'll get on to the next verses where it tells you how badly you're done. But right now, we need to sit there at home. If you're listening now, if you're listening on Instagram Live, wherever you are, understand where you are. Which camp are you in? Well, now that we've discussed this conversation that's happening, which side are you on? Are you on the side that has light, or are you on the side that doesn't have any light? You need to figure out where you are. And you know what? You might be one of those that has light, but you could get more light. Remember what I said at the start of the show. There's going to be some people with loads of light, some people not so much, some with a little bit, some with flickering, some with none at all. Your light is your currency. So you need to now understand, where are you? Where are you at step one? Have you been tempting each other? Have you just tried that first night out? Have you just tried that new drug that your mate has been trying for a few years and now he's finally got you to try it? Or where are you? Are you hesitating at this point? Are you knee deep in sin? Are you so far away from Allah you're thinking, you know what, I can't do this? Or are you planning to do it at another point? Or are you doubting? Are you there now when you're thinking, you know what, this is bumbo jumbo, this is nonsense. What's he on about? This is a fugazi, this is a where's it's not real, it has no matter. Where are you? Is that where you're thinking? Because if it is, these words are designed for you. The words from our Lord are designed for you to sit and contemplate and think, where are you? So the last thing that is said to these people is, and I'll read out the actual full verse now, so we move on to verse 15. So this day, no ransom can be taken from you, nor from those who disbelieved. Your home is the fire. That is your patron, and an unhappy journey's end. So on this day, when that's said to you, there is no way back. No ransom can be taken from you. What does that mean? You can't give anything. You can't go back to earn any light. You can't barter or bargain anymore. You are in this situation, and worse still, you are now classified with the disbelievers. You are as good as someone that didn't have any Islam in their life whatsoever. And where's your home? Your home is now the fire. That's it. You're gone. You'll be grouped with the fire. You will be grouped with the disbelievers, and you will be condemned to the fire. Dan, I think you wanted to talk a little bit about how this scary scenario and what we should take from the scary thought that we're being presented here with.
Yeah, I mean, it does give you goosebumps. When you listen to that, it's very serious. Yeah, the Quran doesn't make any, it doesn't care about how much it offends you or anything like that. If you are there thinking of these things, it's very important. But at the same time, the fact that we have these verses revealed to us is a mercy in itself.
Yes.
Yeah? For those who have understanding, it's a mercy. Yeah, you could have been thrown into that environment and had no rope to climb up. But we're given rope all the time by Allah, the most merciful. He always gives us something to reflect upon and something to kick us into action. And with that, you know, there's another parable I want to give to people. I can be on the beach, you know, a beautiful sunny day on the beach. Let's call it Antigua. It's a place I like. And in front of you, you've got the sand. You know, no one there, just the sand. You have a stick in your hand, and you draw two lines, two horizontal lines in front of you. The line, you draw one furthest away from you, so quite far away, and then you have one that's quite near, you know, a lot nearer to you. Now, the line that is furthest away from you, that is the dunya. That is all my plans for the dunya. This is me looking at it going, right, that's it. Next year, I'm going on Hajj. Yeah, I'm going to then get married. I'm going to do all these different things. I'm going to have that flashy car. I'm basically going to do everything that I want to do in the dunya. And by the end of it, yeah, if I complete all that, you know, life completed it, and I'm going to paradise because, you know, that's my plan. I've done everything. The line that is nearest to me, that is death. Okay? Death can come at any time, at anywhere, any form, right? So, whatever you plan in this life, brothers and sisters listening now, forget about it. Yeah? You can plan the best of things. Unfortunately, we are rewarded for our intentions in Islam, yeah, not by the outcome. We're always rewarded by the intention. So if your intentions are pure, then inshallah, you're okay. But at the same time, do not forget the fact that death is there. We have a reminder of it every single day. And as these verses say, when you die, you cannot go back. That's it. Over. So the things that you take with you are your good deeds. Yeah. Well, that's it. Yeah, your deeds.
Yeah.
So let's make sure that we kick into action. Yeah. If you listen to this now, you think to yourself, yeah, you can't think next year I'm going to do something because you might not be here next year. Yeah. If you think about how many people have actually died during this coronavirus, yeah, outbreak, and you think to yourself, you knew them last week, and suddenly they're gone. Yeah, family members, anything like that. Death is a constant reminder to us every day of those who take heed of the message that is being sent to us. So make sure we kick into action today. Anything that you say you're going to do next week, try and make the effort. Yeah, just make the effort.
Yeah, and it leads nicely in terms of our next week's show is called Initiating Change. So if you're sat at home, the purpose of today has really been about addressing where you guys are. Where are you in these steps? Dan mentioned it. Look, you might be hesitating. You might be putting it off for next week. You might be putting it off to the end of Ramadan. You might be putting it off to next year. Whatever it might be, now is the time to change. We are in the blessed month of Ramadan. Let's take advantage of this. Take advantage of this show. And inshallah, next week, our next week's show, we'll be talking about initiating change, and that will be discussing a few different items in terms of acknowledging your state and the need to change. It'll be talking about sincere repentance. It'll be giving you advice on how to discard haram, so some of the things that we've talked about in today's topics, and also how to put Allah first, because ultimately that is key. So we'll go into that next week. Now, we've had obviously some messages come through, and we've got some topics that we wanted to touch upon in a bit more detail before we close up the show. And I think there were a few things that we wanted to address as part of some of the feedback that we've had from each other, and feedback that we're having that's coming back in regarding some of the issues that we've talked about. Because look, we've gone in straight heavy, haven't we? We've not messed around. We've talked about stuff that's relevant. We've talked about things that don't always get said. So between youth, you know, they don't always sit here and say, hey, you know what, I'm struggling, I think I'm sinning, I need to go back, because they don't want to be seen as uncool. So we're saying the things that are being not being said by the youth. We're also saying the things that are being swept under the carpet by parents as well. So parents of young people, or even parents themselves. Remember, this guidance is timeless. It's ageless. You know, Dan, you're 32. I'm 34. We consider ourselves young, but you know, we can relate to every step of this. And no matter how old you are, no matter what your background is, there's something in there that you may have related to. You know, none of us are perfect, but you might know people as well that are going through this. So in terms of some of the key things that we've spoke about today, we just wanted to touch on a few of those items. So one of the first things I wanted to talk about was the drug use that we talked about, and how this is a bit of a problem. I say a bit, it's a lot of a problem. Now, the reason being is there's a few things that I'm going to tell you, insider knowledge in terms of what's going on today with the youth and what's happening that we aren't aware of, that we are brushing under the carpet, or that we are accepting as the norm. Now, traditionally, we talk about drugs and we see it as such a taboo thing, and we think, okay, you know, the word drug gets mentioned, the one that uses drugs is therefore a druggie, okay? And what's the first thing that comes into mind when you say someone is a druggie? You think, you know, someone that's homeless, someone that's shooting up heroin on a stairwell, someone that has no prospects, someone that's had no education, that has no family, that has nowhere to go, okay? That is, yes, an example of severe drug use. And yes, that's a problem. It's a problem in society. It's a problem in Muslim society. It's a problem in non-Muslim society. That's something that we see, but we see it as a problem that's not there for us. Yeah, it's something that's outside, and it's not attached or associated to us. However, the use of drugs is very frivolous at the moment. The use of drugs on a leisurely basis, on a pleasurely basis, is absolutely massive at the moment. So you can be a person that has a good job, that goes to the gym, that looks good, a Muslim that sometimes goes and prays Jummah, sometimes, you know, fasts during Ramadan, but he goes to the nightclub and he's drinking every week and he's sniffing every week, and he can afford to do it. It doesn't damage his life. It doesn't damage his family ties. It's not damaging his work. It's not damaging his body even so much to say, in terms of what we can see. But what is it damaging? It's damaging his spiritual connection to Allah. It's damaging that love and closeness that he has to Allah. Because the thing is, yeah, you know what? We can sin, but we can still pray. We know that. The problem is, when someone's taking drugs, or, you know, is having a heavy night out, they're written off for the weekend. They're written off for a few days. The last thing on their mind is getting back to Allah. And it becomes harder and harder and harder, and then they fall into these steps. So we need to look out for these people that have normalized drug use, because it is normalized now, and it is such a big problem. And the people that are taking it, you might be listening to me, there might be people who know people, you won't see it as a problem. But we need to identify that now, and we need to act, and we need to look at ourselves and think, you know what, is that thing the thing that's keeping me away from Allah? Is that the thing that's keeping me away from change? And I will delve into this topic a little bit more, inshallah, on next week's show. The second thing I think Dan wanted to talk about is the fact that we've talked a lot about being off the path because you're committing haram sins. But you can be off the path without committing haram. So Dan, did you want to just quickly go on that?
Exactly. Like we've been speaking a lot, like you said, haram, 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 hitting home, hitting hard. Yeah, don't do the kufr, you know, make sure you're not doing the harm and you're fine. Yeah. But the other side of the coin is that you could be a person who is a good Muslim. Yeah, you identify yourself as a good Muslim. You're doing, you're praying, your salah and all those kind of things. But every now and again, you want to watch that Liverpool match. It's on at 3 o'clock, and you haven't played Jummah yet. I mean, you haven't played Zuhur yet. You think, yeah, I'll just watch the game. Yeah, and then you think, yeah, it gets to 5 o'clock. Oh, what's going on? And these things like slowly creep in. But it's not haram to miss that perfect timing for the, as long as you get it in within the time frame, you're okay. Yeah, so you're doing all these things and it's halal, but then you continue doing things. You may want to play football, you may want to do all these different things, hang around with your friends, and there's no harm in that. There's no harm in loving the dunya. I've got to repeat this. There's no harm in someone loving the dunya. But at the same time, if you are doing things in the dunya that take away your thoughts and your remembrance of Allah in the akhirah, then those things will naturally become haram. Okay? So you can lead the halal life, you can lead the good life, but at the same time, if you forget the things that you should be doing, more so, and start doing the things that aren't haram, watching football isn't haram, but if you keep doing those things, then eventually they can change your mindset.
It's all about priorities, and we'll finish off on this because this is going to be something that we're going to be talking about next week, is in terms of you need to put Allah first, and that's going to be one of the key things that we talk about on next week's show, in terms of how do you have this balance of being successful in this life and all of the things that are here materialistic, but at the same time putting Allah close and putting Allah first and His commandments first as well. Because once you achieve that balance, you will be able to get back onto the straight path. And inshallah, that will be something that we'll talk about in next week's show, which will be Tuesday, 7 p.m. So I just want to say, Jazakallah, thank you very much for everyone for listening. We hope that you have enjoyed this week's show. And thank you for tuning in to Ramadan Radio Wolverhampton. You can follow us on @Ramadan Radio Wolves on Instagram. Facebook is Ramadan Radio Wolves. And if you would like to visit and listen on our website, it's ramadanradiowolves.com. Just a final message to say goodbye.